Hi everyone, welcome to Talks on Ground. I'm happy to have Jamie Alter today review the BGT. First of all, Happy New Year. So, this is cricket time. So, all cricket lovers will be waiting for this. So, I'm not going to waste any time and bring on Jamie Alter. Uh, Jamie, how are you?
I'm good, Samit. Happy New Year to you and Happy New Year to everyone watching this.
Great, great. So I remember we did this, I think November 20th or something, when the first test was just about to begin. And we had a deep, like a discussion on what will happen. And you mentioned 2-2 could be the result. And I think we came within 1 hour of that happening. Perhaps just the 1 hour which didn't go India's way. That is one way of looking at it. But otherwise, what are your views overall? How do you see the series? Where does it sit in the history of Indian Test series, big ones, and so on?
Yeah, obviously disappointing for Indian fans, as you said. It got very close. That said, had it not rained in Brisbane, I personally have no doubt that India would have lost that test badly. So you can say that to win in Perth, where very few people thought it was possible, I didn't see Perth happening. I was actually more confident of India winning the second and fourth test matches. They won neither of those. But when you go to Australia with doubts over your capability, when you go to Australia with certain players not around, certain players not near peak form, it was always going to be very tough. Which is why I didn't have, like many people had it being India 3-1. I was very optimistic from my own very low standards. I thought there'd be a draw. Rain would have one match, so that was there. But overall, when you hand over the Border-Gavaskar trophy on a thali, literally, this was competitive. This series in fits and starts, but when you lose that margin, and more than the margin, Summit, when you, of your nine totals, six of them were not even 200. That just shows that the worst team ended up losing the series and the much better team. And as we discussed last time, I think I even single out the fact that Australia will be under more pressure, and man to man, Australia also had problems. Before and during the series, they had players who weren't scoring runs. They lost a strike bowler, but the team that had the better planning, the better preparation, and the better luck, I would say, ended up winning the Border Gavaskar Trophy.
Hmm. So, first test, Jasprit Bumrah becomes the captain. Rohit Sharma doesn't play. He's back in India for his second child. And India rolls over Australia easily, unexpectedly. And must be said, in the first innings, it was all Bumrah. But at the same time, India did take a lead. India posted a big total and then rolled over Australia rather easily. So at that point of time, India seemed to be completely ahead in pretty much every department. The only warning sign that I had seen was one, the opening spells from the fast bowlers, and then Travis Head later on in the order. So where did you think it went wrong for India? Was Rohit captaincy the issue, the selection, all this brouhaha over Gambhir and Rohit and all of these things? Where do you think? Do you think it was just these issues are peripheral, or these issues were central?
I would say they were more central than peripheral, because when you're captain and coach, and let's face it, of the five test matches played on tour, four of them, the captain and coach, not just be Bumrah, the captain, Rohit Sharma, I'll say this categorically, Rohit Sharma and Gautam Gambhir, in four or five test matches, all four which you didn't win, you picked the wrong 11. So when the coach and the captain, the two most important people in the dressing room, in that inner circle, when they can't figure out what 11 to put on the field, that is very much a central issue. But where they lost it was drop catches, terrible batting form of Virat Kohli, inconsistency of Rishabh Pant, awful series from Rohit Sharma, not enough support to Jasprit Bumrah. I mean, Jasprit Bumrah, for the first time in his career, he played a five test match series and got almost through five test matches. And nobody should be alarmed that final day when he was not able to take the field, how flat India looked because they didn't have their strike bowler. Mohammad Siraj was awful on that final day. Prasidh Krishna began awfully, managed to get 3 wickets, but this was just Preet Bumrah, and I've had people take me on my own YouTube channel and on social media saying, "But Jasprit Bumrah has been there, all throughout, and they didn't win." I said, "Yes, but you subtract Jasprit Bumrah, India would have lost 5-0. The fact that India won a Test match, I'm giving 90% credit of the Perth win to Jasprit Bumrah, because India were bowled out for 150, and by stumps, he'd taken 4 of the 7 wickets to fall. His first ball on day two at Perth, he gets Alex Carey. He was player of the match. If India competed, as you said, if India came an hour, 2 hours to winning a match, the whole series, it was because Jasprit Bumrah. So it was when you bat 9 times, and of those 9 times, six, that's 2/3 of your tour. You couldn't get 200 on the board. You don't even deserve to be in discussions around the border, around the WTC trophy. So the batting, I would put 70% the batsman to blame. I would put 20% the thinking of the coach and the captain, and 10% to the lack of support for Jasprit Bumrah. Because Mohammad Siraj, all said and done, did get 20 wickets, So that's
Right.
how I would break it down.
So I have one stat. Let me see if I can bring it up. This is just the stat of all the bowlers, how many wickets they took. Uh, I think let's see. Is this the one? One second. No, I don't have that. Maybe I have this. Is this the one? I am not sure. This is very visible. So, anyways, uh, my point was I looked at uh, all the stats from India, and there was one major issue, and that was Mohammad Siraj. I'm being very honest. There's a list. I just can't find it right now, but there's a list of bowlers who conceded the most runs in a innings, and appears there in three of those top five or four. Bumrah appears once for in that MCG first innings when he conceded 99 because of Constas. But apart from that, it was all Siraj. And I thought Siraj took wickets, but he was very expensive. His economy here is 3.96, if I can see this, which is averaged out over spells he where he didn't concede runs. But when he was going for runs, he was going for like 5 and over, 6 and over, which in those kind of conditions were criminal in a way. Won't you agree?
Absolutely. I've been accused on many shows of being anti Mohammad Siraj. I'm saying I'm not anti Mohammad Siraj. I'm just putting out the facts for people who care to listen to what we're saying, like the two of us are discussing. The Mohammad Siraj that made his Test debut in 2020 in the previous tour of Australia to the Mohammad Siraj now, why is there not a sharper increase in his numbers? Why are the numbers, why, as you rightly pointed out, why are the numbers dismal? He's played 4 years of Test cricket. The first 18 months, the first 20 odd months were very good. But for some reason, which I personally, Samit, cannot wrap my head around, the last 18 months, okay, so you can argue that he's good enough to feature in India's first Test 11 for 18 months. He's had, he's able to bowl a lot of overs. He bowled more overs than Bumrah did in this series. But the point is, if we can count the number of good spells, incisive spells, not even on one hand, on 3 fingers out of 5 fingers, to me that is problematic. And you rightly brought up the stats. It's come down to 3.96. I think that doesn't tell the story. There were days when he was going at 5.3, 5.4, right? He had 2 good spells in 5 Test matches. And I believe, if you can bring the stats up again, I believe he bowled 157.1 overs, if I'm not mistaken. There you go. So from
Right, right.
157.1 overs across a grueling, back-breaking, taxing 5 Test series, if Mohammad Siraj, who has the responsibility, the duty, the privilege of sharing a new ball with a man called Jasprit Bumrah, And I'm not for a second comparing him to Bumrah. Bumrah is a legend. Bumrah's and he'll be India's all-time greatest fast bowler when he retires. But how Mohammad Siraj can be remembered for two spells out of 157 overs underlines, in my very humble opinion, that something is not right. He should have been a much more effective, but he's very erratic bowler. The amount of times he sprays the ball, three balls out of six, two balls out of six down the leg side. The amount of times Bumrah's just bowled a high class first over, and in the second over, be it McSweeney in Adelaide, be it Constis, they're getting balls on the pads. It's Test cricket, for crying out loud. You cannot be offering uh, in a low scoring series on very challenging wickets, you cannot be offering repeated deliveries on the pads. And that final day, when there was no Jasprit Bumrah, a match that got over for the umpteenth time on the third day, you expected Mohammad Siraj, who stood up so well. Like I said, 4 years ago, he made his debut. By the third match at the Gabba in 2021, he was leading the attack and he was so bloody good. That same Mohammad Siraj, erratic, spraying the ball, there was a delivery he bowled, which was like 5 feet off the pitch. It beat Rishabh Pant, and Rishabh Pant was like, "Man, hi pakad raha hai isko, mera ho gaya." So it just says, yes, he got 20 wickets. People have said, oh, he got more than Mitchell Stark. And I tell these people, I said, but Mitchell Stark has walked away with the Border-Gavaskar trophy. Mohammad Siraj has
Right.
walked away with a sore back, right? So what do 20 wickets count when you were nowhere near as good as the other guy doing the job? Akash Deep. People will throw me stats and say Akash Deep ka strike rate 55 tha, uska average. But anyone who's got two eyes and understands the game of cricket will tell you that overall, a guy who played just two matches offered more control, more confidence to Jasprit Bumrah than Mohammad Siraj did. So I'm not slamming Mohammad Siraj. I'm saying, boss, it's 4 years. The team needed a much more disciplined, a much more effective Mohammad Siraj. You bowl one great ball to Travis Head, you bowl one great ball to someone. It's great fun to watch you. We also thump our chests, but we're not here to watch you bowl one or two good balls out of 157. So perhaps I'm being extremely harsh, but this is a guy who he was the leader of the pack alongside Bumrah. He should have done a lot more than 20 wickets at 31 and a strike rate of 47. So probably I'm being harsh, but I have to hold these guys accountable.
Right. A couple of questions have come in from Vinay Chabria. Uh, these are on the lines that I would have asked you anyways. So let's take them. Do you think Rohit's batting affected his captaincy, or is there an issue with Rohit or the
100% Vinay. I'm answering your question by saying 100% his batting has affected his captaincy. Rohit Sharma was never a very good test captain. He was an okay captain, far clear in thinking, far more proactive in white ball cricket. He often seems to reactive, like I'll wait to see what happens. And not just in this series. We saw this, a year and a half ago in South Africa. He started a spell with Shardul Thakur when his two best bowlers were Bumrah and Siraj, against Bangladesh, even though India smashed them in that series. There were moments there. There were moments against England about, what, 9 months ago. India did fantastically to come back from that loss in Hyderabad. But you're wondering, why is the session starting with already four guys out in the deep? Are you so scared of Ollie Pope? So there were enough signs before this very shocking and very sudden slump came that Rohit Sharma was struggling as a captain. But how it became so bad, literally in the span of months, I think it's just his batting. On September 19th, and I've said this before, Vinay, on September 19th, when India resumed playing Test cricket after roughly 6 months, Rohit Sharma's batting average was 45. 3 months later, it's 40. Very rare is a batsman going to see his batting average drop by 5 runs per innings in 3 months. But that is how awful Rohit Sharma has been. And it's not a long time. 6 months is nothing. 7 months is nothing. I just think the captaincy, and he admitted after India were beaten by New Zealand that he sat there weeping in the Wankhede dressing room. So Vinay, I have no doubt that it's the batting. Yeah, that's my very honest answer.
right, right. So there's another question which I would have asked. Prasid Krishna, uh, Harshit Rana over Prasid Krishna. So uh, honestly, I thought this was the one of the better selections. because whatever I'd seen of Prasidh Krishna was that he's one of those Navdeep uh, Navdeep Saini
Signing.
kind of bowler who hits the deck and then he doesn't have any plan B. And his plan B has been to pitch it right up. And in one game against Australia A, he got a couple of quick wickets up front. But I thought he doesn't have, like, he's not a thinking bowler, I mean, for the lack of a better word. But from what I saw of him in the fifth test, I thought he has evolved. So maybe there is merit in having played him before Harshit Rana.
Yeah, so I think before the series, if we rewind to Perth, we had discussed these kind of things that, like you said, he had been in Australia for 3 weeks. He played two first class matches, India A versus Australia A, and he was a leading wicket taker. I think Prasadh Krishna had taken 10 or 11 wickets. So he would have seemed like you would want the guy who's parked himself in the country you're playing 5 tests in, and he has done pretty well. You'd expect that he'd play because Perth required that sort of tall bowler with a good shoulder who could bang the ball in. But probably they've never said this openly that I can remember. But probably they saw something in a younger, quicker Harshit Rana in the nets in the build up to Perth. I would have thought, and I think I've said this on a couple of shows, I would have wanted a bowler like Prasidh Krishna to play Perth, Brisbane more than anything else. I wanted a bowler like Akash Deep to play the Adelaide day-night match
Adelaide.
because of his style, and they didn't, and they went for Harshit Rana. And lo and behold, the Harshit Rana that we saw in bouncy, pacey Perth was looking like a Ranji club bowler, a second 11 bowler when he played in Adelaide. So horses for courses, which is why I mentioned Summit at the start of the show that in 4 or 5 test matches, the Rohit Gambhir combo didn't understand what kind of player to pick. Now, by the time you got to Prasidh Krishna, it was because you really didn't have any more options. In hindsight, should Prasidh Krishna have played in Sydney? No, I would have liked to see him start earlier because on a very small sample size in Test cricket, he starts off very average, very wayward, but he gets better, and he did get better. But even the way he started off, and when they were defending 161 runs, the first 3 overs were awful, of which only one was Prasidh Krishna's. But once he got wickets, the confidence came. Then that height, then the shoulder,
Right.
then the length. I mean, you talk about highlights of the series. That ball that Prasidh Krishna bowled to Steven Smith when all was basically on the line to fight for. That's a great ball. Now you can say in hindsight, with the with the benefit of hindsight, that kind of ball that Prasidh Krishna bowled to Steven Smith in Sydney, if he'd bowled half a dozen of those in Perth or even in Brisbane, he might have got a few wickets. But no point thinking along those lines. So a good call to finally give him. But before the uncapped Harshit Rana, I would have liked to see Prasidh Krishna start a little earlier in the series.
Right. And we can see that he goes for as many as this guy Siraj does, but his strike rate is better, though it's a small sample size.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Now on the batting side, I thought the people are going after Rishabh Pant when I thought he was one of the only batsmen, maybe apart from KL Rahul, Smith, and Yashasvi. Though Yashasvi, I thought was quite he played and missed a lot. Pant was one guy who was middling a lot of deliveries, and he would just get out because the Australians had a plan. Don't you think some of the criticism he's copped is a bit unfair? That's what I thought.
Absolutely, and I will not hold back from what I'm about to say. It's all well and done when the great Mr. Sunil Gavaskar uses words like stupid, stupid, stupid at a high octane pitch for Rishabh Pant. But why don't these great players who now have the privilege of sitting with in mics in their hands, why don't they use words stupid, stupid, stupid for what Virat Kohli did? Virat Kohli's dismissals and half the tour, are they not stupid? Are they not letting the team down? So I am very vocal when it comes to this. Rishabh Pant can be a soft target. Yes, people don't understand that Rishabh Pant, for the first time in a very, very successful test career, has failed by his standards in a series of 4 or more test matches. Pick up any, and I've done this. That's why I'm speaking to you with authority, Samit. in the times he's played series, and there not been too many, but in the few times he's played a series of at least four test matches, he's performed very well. This was his worst test series ever. Is a man who's 26, 27, who anyways has a very high risk approach, who anyways opens himself to criticism every single day he bats, a man who's come back from death virtually. Is he not allowed to have one awful series? And I'm saying awful because he was that good in the past two series. So full credit to Australia for completely shutting down Rishabh Pant in this series. When Rishabh Pant plays five test matches and gets only 150, that is entirely down to how disciplined Australia were. And there's a reason why Pat Cummins is the smartest captain going around right now. You asked me, you haven't asked me, but let's assume you asked me, Jamie, is there one player who the Aussies would fear apart from Bumrah? And I would tell you, Rishabh Pant. They don't fear Virat Kohli. They don't fear Rohit Sharma. They know कि रोहित तो वॉकिंग विकेट है. ऑस्ट्रेलिया के अंदर बच्चे बच्चे जानते होंगे स्कूल यार्ड्स में कि if we pitch the ball up on the fifth stump to Virat Kohli 15 times in a row, we'll get his wicket. So how? And
Right.
I'm not defending Rishabh Pant's. Rishabh Pant's dismissals in MCG, especially that first innings, they were awful. They were pathetic. You had no need to walk across to the eighth stump, try some god awful shot, fall on your ass, laugh, get up, and then play the same blooming shot again. How do you aim to hit a ball over deep square leg and end up giving a catch to Nathan Lyon at third man? That was a criminal shot in my mind. In the second innings, it was his dismissal that cued the slide. I get it. But can someone with half a cricketing brain tell me how Virat Kohli, with 15 seconds left at the MCG before lunch, how he chooses for the sixth time in a row to nick a ball outside off stump? Tab kahan the Gavaskar sahab? Stupid. Nahi, because they're afraid of brand Kohli. They won't talk about Virat Kohli. Virat Kohli, just give me 2 more minutes. Virat Kohli is averaging 30 for the last 5 years. किसी और देश में हम उस इंसान को बाहर करते हैं. यहाँ तो हम बाहर नहीं कर रहे. We might make him the stand-in captain. I'm a big Virat Kohli fan, but you have to call out the elephant in the room. His shots, a man with 100 plus test matches, 30 hundreds, his shots are also letting down India, just like Rishabh Pant's were, just like some of Jaiswal's were. When Jaiswal ran himself out on 82 or something, and then the night watchman Akashdeep got out, there were 7, 8, 9 minutes left. Two stumps. A man with 30 hundreds, all he had to do was shut up shop. Nay, he nicked off again with 8 minutes to left. Is this not stupid material? Absolutely it is. So I agree with you. Rishabh Pant, yes, he was awful in this series. He got out playing some bad shots. But why is he the scapegoat? And why is not one single person calling Virat Kohli's shots stupid?
Right. Quick comment on Pant. I think in the 2020-21 series, he used to come in much later because the pitches were not as spicy, and the ball was didn't have the extra lacquer. So that was a big difference. So here he was challenged on his outside the off stump and more. So I think that was a fair reflection. But I think he looked good, and he'll go back and think he could have done more. Uh, Another question: decent series for KL. Do you think his inconsistency is hurting India for sure? Uh, he has been, because of his request, has been turned down against England. Whatever. So KL Rahul, I think it'll be very unfair to drop him now, because I think he mastered the first three test matches when the conditions were the toughest. People talk about inconsistency. I think Virat Kohli is the one to blame. Rohit Sharma is to blame, but not KL Rahul, especially with him going up and down the order.
See, so my view on KL Rahul, and I have to admit that I didn't even see KL Rahul starting in Perth. I was very skeptical, not just because of his current form, because his past record in Australia was really nothing. He'd gone to Australia three times and he had an average of 20 as an opener with 100 scored a decade ago. So I was skeptical. And I didn't feel like somebody who had been recalled for the second or third time as a middle order batsman should be, sent up
Right.
to opening. Yes, he's an opener by profession, but I thought it was unfair to always make KL Rahul the scapegoat. कि इसको भेजो. But like you said, he did very, very well. He was incorrectly given out for 20 something in the first innings
26.
because of 26. Yes, because there was not enough technology on view, and that's not his fault. He got 77 in the second innings, and he and Jaiswal put on India's first double century opening stand in Australia. And they had a significant role to play in India coming back from 150 all out to ending up, setting Australia a target of 530 odd. He mastered those conditions. Then again, in the pink ball test match, he got a very good short ball from Pat Cummins, which he gloved. But he said, you know what, that's okay. Then he gets that lovely 84, 85 in Brisbane. That said, to my mind, it is a very typical KL Rahul series that ends with an average of 32, which is pretty much his career average. So it's not a very
Hmm.
good series. It's not a bad series. It's just one of those series like many we've seen since KL Rahul started playing cricket 10 years ago. Yeah, it's good, but shouldn't he have done more? It's a very natural question. Now his balls faced, his runs scored, they stand out in a series where nobody else, barring Jaiswal and Nitish Reddy, did something. But when your leading run getter is a guy who's 22, when your second highest run getter is a guy who's 21 playing Test cricket for the first time, and then comes KL Rahul, you figured shouldn't the guy with 11 years of Test cricket have done more? So yes, you have to praise him, but unfortunately, you also have to say KL Rahul. It's a glass half full, glass empty kind of scene, and he's
Right.
not being dropped anytime soon. The goodwill that he has in the BCCI selectors' minds, very few players have that. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Uh, right, and there is a lot of hate that KL gets, online and elsewhere. But here's a stat. Even Steven Smith averaged only 35 despite hitting, 200s. So I guess we have to cut some slack for KL. He looked the
But
part for.
again, that's the thing, right? Steven Smith came into this series. Half of Australian media was saying, "Isko bahar pheko." He still got 200s, right? KL Rahul gets
Hmm.
to 70 and throws it away. You have to also say, why are the hundreds coming? It's been 11 years. Are we happy with 74s? I'm not. 11 years is a long time. There's no other player, barring him, who's played 60 odd test matches and averages 33. So at some point, we have to say, are we going to be happy with average of 33? Steve Smith still got 200, and they were damn good hundreds. So I'll always be a bit more harsh on KL Rahul, only because the talent, Samit, the talent is so obvious. But 11 years,
Right.
an average of 33, that's a that's an underwhelming test career, if you ask me.
So if we have to summarize, given we are short on time, uh, do you think we lost the series because we didn't make enough runs, or did we lose the series when we didn't have enough backup for Jasprit Bumrah? One additional comment on this. Uh, I thought the wicket on first day in Perth and then this Sydney second day was perhaps the most spicy from fast bowling perspective because there was some uneven bounce as well, apart from the seam movement. Given that, what would you say? What really is the lacune?
Batting, because the batting clicked. The batting clicked in 1819 when Virat Kohli's team became the first Asian team to win in Australia, and the batting clicked in 2021. This time, you took players who were out of form, low on confidence. You picked the wrong 11 just to satisfy Rohit Sharma's ego. You dropped Shubman Gill. Shubman Gill had a terrible series, but he was your second highest run getter in 2024. So to try and fit in the superstars and their egos, you made some wrong changes, but Australia batted on those same batting tracks. They had to cop body blows. They were made to work for every single run. They didn't fail to get 200 in 6 out of 9 times. The only team that failed to get to 200. And if you're not putting up 200, chalo, ek aad match, I agree. If 6 of your 9 completed innings, haven't got to 200, your batsmen are to be blamed 80% for this series loss. And how it, I'm gobsmacked that the two kids, I'm calling them kids because Jaiswal just turned 23, but when he went to Australia, he was 22, and Reddy's 21. How two kids can score nearly 400 runs and 300 runs, and all the guys who've gone there half a dozen times, they couldn't cope. The answer is right there. The batting was the reason for India's loss.
Right. Uh, Thank you, Hindu story time. So, um, I don't know. I mean, just for the sake of discussion, I would take a
Mm.
different line. I would say, if you look at the first test match where Bumrah got going, and there was support from Siraj and others in the at that time, India won that test, and the conditions got easier and so on. Of course, that wouldn't have happened in Sydney, but in all other venues, that would have happened. So if India had maybe put Siraj as number three bowler or dropped him and taken a better uh, list of fast bowlers, I don't know where Mayank Yadav was or where Mukesh Kumar was, because if Mukesh and Akash were there, say in Adelaide or even Brisbane, I'm thinking India would have made it very tough for Australia to take those leads. But I take your point. 6 out of 9 is just too much. Uh, right.
No, and also, all said and done, if you stack up the batting versus the bowling, let's say you have two objectives. For the batsman's objective in every test match, in every innings, I'd say, if their objective was to bat 5 sessions and score 350 runs, and the bowler's job was to take 10 wickets, India didn't bat 5 sessions once, right? The bowler still took 10 wickets every innings, barring the one time when the target was 18. So you have to discount that. And then in Brisbane, Australia declared when they were 7 down. The bowlers, despite them being average, they were still doing their job. Thoda time laga, but
Mm,
why the bowlers every time they had to bowl were like, yeah, phir se batsman ne run nahi banaye. So you actually felt bad. Mukesh Kumar was part of the squad all the while. He was sitting there carrying drinks. Why didn't they pick him? So that's why I said the captain and coach, not Bumrah. Jab tak Bumrah captain the, so you won that one match, right? Chalo, you lost in Sydney. Overall, the captain and the coach, they just failed to pick. They just failed to pick the wrong 11. I was actually wrong. I forgot this, and I'll admit my mistake. The final test match, Bumrah has to be blamed. Sydney on that wicket playing two spinners. You
right.
didn't need one spinner. If you're if and this is where it comes down to poor planning. If you're playing Jadeja and Washington Sundar for 3, 4 test matches out of 5 because their batting extends the tail, but they're hardly bowling, you had Sarfaraz Khan, you had the very impressive Dhruv Jurel. If Sundar and Jaddu are only playing because of their batting and they're hardly bowling, why didn't you just play two specialist batsmen? दुनिया को पता है, अंधे बहरे को पता है कि the problem is India's batting. Virat Kohli and Ravi Shastri, they didn't go for that nominal fifth batting option. They always played 5 bowlers, and 4 of them were fast bowlers. Yahan pe, they were too scared to play 4 fast bowlers because then the tail gets longer. Oh, let's play Washi and Jaddu because inki batting काम आएगी. कहाँ काम आई? Jaddu had 1 innings out of 5. Washington Sundar had 150 out of 5 innings. You were much better playing off. If you needed batting depth, always go for a specialist more than a bits and pieces all rounder.
I thought I will never say this, but now Ravi Shastri is looking like like the best coach in the world, and Virat Kohli
Absolutely.
is looking like the best captain. At that
Yeah.
time, I must say we were really critical, especially around the selections and so on.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for this discussion. I know you have to go. This was a great
We
discussion,
can do another
and
5 minutes if you want to.
right. So basically, uh, if I look at the uh, Gautam Gambhir coaching uh, style and his tenure, he's lost in Sri Lanka, he's lost in India, New Zealand. So it's across formats, it's across geographies, but
Yep.
it's not across captains. That is the
Yes.
funny thing. When Bumrah captained in Perth, they looked all right. In Sydney, yes, there was a mistake in picking spinners. But
Yep.
I thought if Bumrah was around, despite all of that, India might have still won, maybe a
Yep. Yep.
close game.
Definitely.
So is it
So no, yeah,
something
it's there.
purely
It
down to Rohit and Gautam?
I mean, you'll always find people who'll argue, oh, it's still early days. A couple needs a few months to figure out. Yes, that makes sense. But I think the signs were there in the first time that they got together. And of course, they've not worked together in any capacity, but they're two individuals who know their cricket very, very well. They both achieved a lot. And then you go to Sri Lanka with your barring Bumrah. I think you had your first choice one day 11. I mean, Gill was there, Rohit was there, Virat was there, Shreyas was there, Rishabh was there, KL Rahul was there, Kuldeep was there, Akshar was there, Siraj was there. You had almost, barring Bumrah, I might be forgetting one name, but you had your first choice 11, and then you lose for the first time in 27 years. You lose an ODI series to Sri Lanka. And 4 days before that, the captain was different, the format was different, and you beat them 3-0. That home series, I mean, it started with India's lowest home total, 46 all out. I mean, in the first test match, of a series,
Right.
um, shocking. And then you lose those three, series, and then you struggle in Australia to pick 11s. There'll be enough people will say, no, no, but the coach is not the one on the field taking wickets and scoring runs. And I understand that there's a very good argument to say that the coach's job ends once the players step onto the field because he's not the one doing it. But definitely in reading pitches, in reading the dressing room, in picking the 11s, in maybe even agreeing to some of Rohit Sharma's calls. I mean, like, I know Shobman Gill had a terrible series, and he probably should not ever play another Test match in a Sena country because he's that terrible in Sena countries. But you dropped him just because you wanted to fuel Rohit Sharma's ego and make him open. You don't do these things. So unfortunately, India did pay the price in Australia for some of the captain and coach's strange calls.
Right. So we'll take this one last question and then we'll end this. Why don't we play Washington more in home tests? Is it unfair to keep him out and expect him to play and perform in Australia? And remember, Ashwin announced his retirement mid-series, so that's also there.
I think now with Ashwin out of the picture and Jadeja probably not playing too much more Test cricket, Sundar will get his chances because he was so good. But then again, we have to understand that he gets injured every 4 months. He spent as much time being part of India squads as he spent being out of India squads. Had he shown more
Hmm.
better fitness, had he not been so brittle, he probably would have played. But in the times when he was injured or he was not picked, Akshay Patel came and did very well. And frankly, Washington Sundar was never going to get in between Jaddu and Ashwin when they were at their best, right? It took it took Ashwin's downfall to coincide with a terrific comeback from Washington Sundar, 17 wickets in two test matches. That's why he started in Perth ahead of Ashwin. That's why Ashwin took it personally and retired midway. So I wouldn't say it's unfair that Sundar's not got enough chances. He's only 25 still. It's shocking that he's been playing for 8 years and he's just 25. He will play a lot of Test cricket. If he stays fit, he's got a decade more of playing Test cricket at home. So whatever time he lost by having to wait behind, even Kuldeep. I mean, Kuldeep's a proper spinner, so
Right. Right.
he had to wait. He had to wait behind four spinners. Maybe unfair to a certain extent, but I think he will throw it all away overnight if he's told that for the next 10 years you stay fit. I mean, he's 25. Why can't Washington Sundar play at 35 at home? Very good batsman, very good bowler, decent fielder. Doesn't look like a guy who gets phased. He's always calm, always very in the moment. So I like Washington Sundar. And now that Ashwin's gone, I think we have a decade at least of him playing at home. So let's enjoy it.
Right, and he's got a great technique in terms of batting, and which he
Yep.
showed. Anyways, so we can continue discussing this for like 48 hours if we wanted to,
Yeah.
but we have to stop somewhere. So thank you so much, Jamie, and looking forward to having you back at some point of time. Thank you, and
Definitely.
have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Samit. Thank you. Thank you.